Hello! Okay, we are going to do my books of January 2022. This is everything that I read. Book 1, Life Isn't Binary. This is a non-fiction. It looks at the binaries of life such as sexuality, gender, relationships, and emotions. So for this one, I think your mileage might vary depending on how much you pay attention to LGBTQ plus stuff, how much you research mental health, things like that. So for about half the book, it covered a lot of stuff that I already sort of knew. I mean, it covered no new ground, but there were some little tidbits in there and things that were useful. In the end, I gave this 4 stars because it could be a really great introduction for some people. It might be okay for some, but I'm sure most people will come away with something from it. On to number 2. Wild Sheep Chase by Haruki Murakami. A man is tasked by a powerful figure to hunt down a sheep. It's a sort of mystery. And that's it. Like, there's not really much else I could say. It's a weird story. A guy ends up looking for a sheep and hunting it down. And the sheep has possessed someone. So that's the kind of level of weird you're getting in for. It was okay. I think some people really love this. I was just alright, but it has got me excited for Wind Up Bird Chronicle. In the end, I gave this 3.5 stars. It was good fun. Nothing extra special, but I had a good time. Number 3, Ramana by Junji Ito. For some people, the fact that I've just said Junji Ito will be enough to check this out. So go ahead. It is a horror manga about a planet heading for Earth. There is a girl who is the namesake of this planet, and suddenly the whole world starts to blame her for the fact the planet is heading to Earth. And all the horror, sort of half the horror, comes from how people treat her because of this. Here we go. All I can say really is that this is not Junji Ito at his best, but it's not Junji Ito at his worst. It's a good solid story. Give it a go. In the end, I gave it 4 stars. Next, we have Out by Natsuo Kirino. This is a thriller set in 90s Japan. 4 women have to hide a body after one of them kills her husband. I've already spoken about this one, so if you want an in-depth discussion, go check out that video. I talk about it a lot. That's because for me, it was a 5-star read. I came away having to talk about it. Thrillers aren't a go-to for me, but I do enjoy a really good one now and then. And this was great. If you like the sound of the quick synopsis, give it a try. Minor content warning for the very end though. If you're a bit squeamish about certain things, check out some tag warnings beforehand. Next we have Dune Messiah. This is a continuation of the story from the first Dune, as you might suspect. This is mostly about getting to witness Arrakis after the events of the first book. It's sort of a imagine what would happen next. I'm trying very hard not to spoil Dune. It kind of sucks that the film was only half of the story because I have to tiptoe around Dune so much. So, Dune Messiah, I can't really say a huge amount without spoiling huge plot points of the first book. I'll just say I enjoyed it, not as much as the first one, but I'm still really keen to see more of this world. There is a creepy fish guy who pilots ships, so that was cool. Oh, and I gave it 3.5 stars. Greenbanks by Dorothy Whipple. That's a great name. I love that name. Greenbanks depicts the life of a family in pre-World War I England. There are scandals. There's misogyny. Yeah, this was not for me. I'm not a person who likes reading about petty dramas among middle class people in not old England, but pre-war era England. We actually hit World War One, but that ends up being a small portion and a vague backdrop to the book. Because the family drama is more important. If you like Jane Austen, you probably will enjoy this. There's a lot about the writing I could appreciate. For example, there is so much misogyny and sort of commentary on how women were treated in these times. And I fully believe that's what Dorothy Whipple was trying to do. For example, one of the characters just believes that women should not be educated. Thinks they get ideas above their station. And I really think Dorothy Whipple has this character to sort of show the error there, because a lot of the women around him actually start ignoring him, which is kind of cool, but for me, it's not a character and it's not a world I wanted to be around. It ended up being a 2.5. For some people, that will be higher. If, you know, at this point, if that sounds more like your thing, or if you like Jane Austen, that will probably be more for you. So, it's not for me. If you think it's for you, give it a go. And my last book of the month was Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff. This is a fantasy horror. The world has lost the sunlight, and vampires rule. Gabrielle de Leon is a silver saint, a supernatural hunter of vampires. It's a hefty boy. I seriously have a really sore wrist, and I'm pretty sure it's because I keep picking up massive books like this. Empire of the Vampire, isn't that a lovely cover? It's beautiful. And thankfully the contents are pretty good too. I'm gonna put this down because I need... It's very heavy, okay? So Empire of the Vampire has a setup very similar to Interview with the Vampire. That's probably not a coincidence. I feel like J. Kristoff is someone who wears his influences on his sleeve. The ending was very reminiscent of a video game, but I will not say which because that will spoil things. But what I will say is that Gabrielle de Leon, the main character, he is the gruff, tough man archetype. He is Wolverine, he is Geralt, he is all of these characters. I didn't care because he was still great. I loved him. And I think the fact that we also get to see a young him helped differentiate him a bit from those other characters. So he doesn't really have that same agelessness that they have. But one other feature of this book is that it is split across two stories. You have Gabrielle de Leon becoming a Silver Saint, figuring out what he is, starting that journey and training. Then you have another story where he is much older and ends up on a sort of adventure makes it sound too light, but he ends up traveling with a group of people who are on a mission. He sort of doesn't want to be involved in this mission, but he gradually gets pulled in by an old friend. if I have one maybe potential criticism, is that I don't know if these stories should have been separated into different books. My reason being is that it took about 500, 600 pages for us to get to a major revelation. Up until that point, I was enjoying it. It was great. It was good fun. But about that point, I hit the, what does this mean? Oh, what? Oh my God, I can't believe this. Ugh. And then, because we have two basically it will cover one story for a chunk, then flip to the next one for a chunk, and it does that. So I think we have about 6 to 8 sections, so they're interspersed with each other. So because of that structure, we got that again. So we had a major revelation for one portion of the story, and then a major revelation for the next. I was like, dude, we're like 500-600 pages in. I really would have liked to have this happen earlier, because now I'm excited. You know, I went from just enjoying it to loving it. So for me, this ended up being like a 4.25 stars. For that reason, if we'd had those points earlier, I would have massively enjoyed it more. But I don't know how right I am on this. I don't know if I'd only read the story about the young him, I don't know how excited I would be to read more. So I don't really know what the answer is here. Would it be to just like cut out more of that old story? Or maybe we should have had that as a prequel and just tightened up this book a bit more. So yeah, it's a minor criticism. I did have fun till that point, but yeah, once it hits that revelation, I was excited and I was really on board. So it's definitely a recommendation from me. Give it a go. I can't wait for the next one. It's very exciting. And it's so cool to have scary vampires. I know Twilight's been a while. Like, it's been a while in that there are now nostalgic rewatches happening on YouTube. But it's been a while since we've had a really scary vampire. You know, Twilight did change that for a while. And vampires have been kind of on the down low. I will also say this actually feels like a mix of vampire and zombie. There are creatures in this that are technically vampires, but they behave like zombies. Don't, like, if you're like me and you're bored of the zombie genre, don't let that put you off. They're there to add a bit of background horror. But we definitely get a lot of big player vampires who are here to wreck everyone's day. So yeah, that's going to be it from me. That was my January. Tell me what you read. I hope you had good fun. Keep reading.